Hello, this is Kyle Hirschfeld, and this week I will be discussing liberty, freedom, and the differences between those terms and how those terms have evolved and interacted with each other over time, using the political and philosophical views of David Hume as a reference point. In his presentation, Dr. Carey Roberts defines liberty as having been derived from the Latin word libertas, which is more in line with how political cultures are constructed in relationship to the individual and the individual's role within that political system, whereas freedom is derived from the Germanic term, which also gives us the word for neighborliness, and is therefore in relationship to how humans act within a traditional social culture with each other. Liberty, then, is the analysis of the state/individual relationship, whereas freedom is the right of individual/individual interactions. So in Jeff Kennedy's Cicero, Roman Republicanism and the Contested Meaning of Libertas, Kennedy presents liberty in the Roman tradition as being somewhat at odds with itself, with different political parties presenting liberty in different ways. Cicero, who Kennedy is writing about, argues that liberty should not be given freely. Indeed, it is viewed as something that should be suborned to the powers of the Roman Senate. Cicero argues that excess liberty, or the ability for citizens to act without governmental intervention, actually leads to tyranny. So Cicero was afraid of the tyranny of the masses, which will become a much greater idea later on in history. M.M. Walsh argues in Aristotle's conception of freedom that Aristotle defines freedom as the wisdom to choose that which is right always, and this is in social interactions. And she's presenting this in contrasting the idea of freedom against slavery, saying that to act always as one's desires dictate is not freedom, but slavery, and slavery to a hard master. Having the ability to always choose leads one choose whatever one wants to do does not lead to true freedom. It leads to ultimate slavery to one's slavish wills. Augusto Zimmermann in Christianity and the Common Law, Rediscovering the Christian Roots of the English Legal System, discusses the role of Christianity in the evolving idea of freedom and liberty. Interestingly, King Ethelred of England placed into effect a law code which dictated the freedoms of the individuals listed, giving an interplay between liberty and freedom. In order to save themselves from Viking raids, Englishmen were asked and tasked, it was a law code, with ridding themselves of deceitful deeds and hateful abuses, which were to be strictly shunned, adding a social component in the form of shunning to the governmental clause written here. John Locke, later on in English history, further increased this interplay between liberty and freedom by defining liberty as the freedoms which people ought to possess, in contrast to freedom, which is those freedoms that you just have. Liberty in this sense is still passed down from the government. Laws are made which restrict certain individual freedoms for the supposed good of the society in favor of the liberty of the whole. Now this leads me to David Hume, whose An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding presents freedom and liberty in a philosophical view. He is a figure who is writing in the mold of John Locke. He is writing against the assertions of Thomas Hobbes, and he values the idea of property, personal property, very heavily. He asserts that even the poorest artificer who labors alone expects at least the protection of the magistrate to ensure him the enjoyment of the fruits of his labor. Here, Hume is talking about liberty, the idea that the government has to guarantee certain property rights for individuals. He then discusses the idea of freedom in relationship to property. He sets up a hypothetical battle, which is at odds with Hobbes' assertion that men are born in a negative state, in a state of war and barbarism. And the hypothetical battle which Hume presents is he owns a large house which contains many fine things. Hume invites a friend over, and the friend sees these fine things and thusly is confronted with a choice. This is that freedom which was mentioned by Aristotle, the choice between that which is right and that which is wrong. Should the friend decide that avarice should get the better of him, then he shall stab Hume and take his goods. However, should the friend err on the side of wisdom, Hume will remain safe and his goods secure. This is freedom in a social way. If you are exercising pure free will, it's entirely possible that you are going to kill Hume and take what you want. However, if you are exercising freedom in the sense that Aristotle would have it, you are ensuring the good of both you and Hume. Thus, even though laws exist which are to guarantee the liberty of Hume, there is also within human nature the ability to reason and to be neighborly, which keeps the friend from assaulting Hume and taking his goods. It is in this way that we can see the difference between liberty, which is the relationship between the individual and the state, or the rights granted to the individual or ensured by the individual by the state, and freedom, which is how daily interactions within social situations occur. While there is always the freedom to act as one wills, true freedom helps to ensure liberty. It is interesting that these ideas have become so synonymous with each other over time, as they were born of completely separate cultures and ideas. However, it is useful to see that philosophers have maintained that distinction to a point, even while the interplay of the two ideas and terms has gained strength over time. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.